Good evening, Uganda, and welcome on The Spot. My name is Patrick Amara. Tonight, my guest is the opposition doyen, retired Colonel Dr. Kizza Besigye. Dr. Kizza Besigye, thank you so much for having honored our invitation. A warm welcome to you.
Thank you very much, Patrick, and indeed a very good evening to all the NTV viewers, wherever you are joining us from. I hope you've had a good day.
Let me begin by hounding you, if you let me. Because why? Because I've watched you and followed you as a reporter and as a Ugandan. Honestly, you are the opposition doyen. That person who has been consistent in opposing the NRM government. By the way, you have chosen to call it the junta for 20 years. And I'm wondering whether under your sleeve there's any other trick remaining, because you have punched and punched, but it appears, Dr. Besigye, with all respect, it's like you're pushing an immovable rock and nothing else.
Well, movable or immovable, all these are relative things, really. It takes quite a while to end a very determined, manipulative, vicious regime like the one we have been trying to end here. And so when you say it has taken 20 years, it's as if in your estimation it should have taken maybe 1 or 2 or 3, or that there is a number of prescribed years in which a regime of this type should end. And I would like to assure you that there is none. There are many moving elements in a struggle of the type that we are engaged in. It's the state of the population, how conscious the population is, how engaged with the challenges that they face. It's about the leadership in the country, the quantity and quality of leadership for transformation. It's about the economics of the state you are talking about. There are many moving elements.
But you see, Dr. Besigye, I am saying this because, with all respect, you have remained the only constant in the struggle to bring change and maybe stop what you call the junta. I've been this morning pondering about the people I saw you walk with, who seem to have thrown in the towel, and the road is littered with so many. The FDC giants, people like Garuga Musinguzi, people like Amanya Mushega, people like John Kazora, people like Dr. Matembe, people like, you know, Rubaramira Ruranga. The only constant, just like Yoweri Museveni, is Dr. Besigye. The other people, eminent men, women and men of substance, have left you, and you seem continue walking. Don't you get a sense of frustration that, you know what, Patrick, this is not about you anyway?
Yes, Patrick, the struggle is not about the leaders. The struggle is about the population. Because who is contesting who? It's not Besigye contesting the regime. It's the oppressed, subjugated, dominated population that is confronting a cabal, a handful of armed people.
In 2000, when you first wrote your dossier about the NRM government and how they had veered off, that dossier that caused you trouble, that perhaps launched your political career, you were dealing with a different generation, Dr. Besigye. So that generation really is more or less gone.
It doesn't care, it doesn't matter which generation is dominating which. The dynamics we are dealing with is whether there is domination, somebody dominating the population. Let me tell you, the colonial regime of the British dominated the Ugandans for 70 years. How many generations were those? Now, the struggle against colonialism did not change in character. It was that we had foreign domination and that the people of Uganda were resisting and seeking to free themselves. Now, the nature, the dynamics of the struggle against colonial rule is not any different from the nature and dynamics of the struggle against domination.
Let me show you where the difference is.
Themselves.
This is where the difference is, Dr. Kizza Besigye. With all respect, you are dealing with an individual who has beaten the opposition more than 5 times. In his mind, and the NRM, in his mind.
Beaten the opposition
listen, in his mind. He was saying, Doctor, bring them on. Because he has beaten 4 times and has a record to show. Now, he's no longer scared about you because he knows how to beat you once, twice, 3, 4 times.
You see again.
And other colleagues.
You see again, armed dictators like Mr. Museveni are not new on the African continent. And those that have indeed lasted quite a while, whether it's the Bokassas of this continent, whether it's the Gaddafis, whether it's the, you know, Africa has a wide range of those who have expired and those who are still hanging on, that have spent Mobutu's, our neighbors. How long did Mobutu stay? You know, and so would you say that because Mobutu had stayed for decades and his opponents had fallen, many of his opponents had fallen, that it was that the dynamics of the domination of the people of the Congo, for example, had changed? No, it hadn't. And eventually, the defeat is a result, is a direct result of that dynamics. So let me tell you that the domination of Ugandans in the post-colonial era, which has not been honored by Museveni. You see, the fact that armed rule in Uganda, no leader has ever been removed by Ugandans through a vote. All leaders have been removed by force, and it has taken time. And so it's the dynamics of how to remove armed people from power. This is how I say it depends on how determined and manipulative and, coercive, brutal, whatever, all the dynamics that are involved in the power struggle. That is what we have to deal with. At any rate, Patrick, there are 2 options. Either you continue, I would understand if somebody said you are engaged in an unnecessary struggle. There is no need to struggle.
I don't know.
There is no justice. There is no need.
There is a clip making rounds, yes, Dr. Besigye, of yourself describing General Yoweri Museveni as a man, a skillful individual who is a strategist. He looks very far, very persuasive, and quite frankly, visionary. You describing Yoweri Museveni,
yes,
using those words,
yes,
and plus, you know, the statecraft and the resources he has. If he has those skills, clearly, you're swimming against the current.
No, you see,
but that's your own assessment of the man.
First of all,
Dr. Besigye, that is your own assessment of the man.
First of all, nobody. Let's be clear.
Isn't that what you said?
Let's be clear.
Isn't that what you said?
Nobody will rule over millions.
Dr. Besigye, you said that Yoweri Museveni is a skillful politician.
I heard you.
He's very persuasive. He looks at a longer picture.
Yes.
Visionary.
Yes, I heard you.
That's the individual you're up against.
I heard you. You see, nobody will rule over millions of people for years if he does not have any skills. That would be nonsensical. That's why you cannot say Idi Amin was a fool. He could not be. He ruled over Uganda for 9 years. or 8 years. And, you know, in Uganda, they were professors of science, they were, you know, all kinds of land people. He ruled over them for 8 years. So clearly he had skills. The question, so there is no debate as to whether Museveni has some strength. He would not rule over any country for nearly 4 decades without strength. The question is whether he is applying his strength in a way that is helpful or an evil way. And if
he's an evil genius?
If you cared to listen to that same recording, which is manipulated, where they just cut out a small bit of what I said, if they completed it, I said that of course the trouble is that Mr. Museveni has applied these strength, 3 strengths, for evil purposes. So
you're calling him an evil genius?
No, obviously he's, you know, I think he's...
it's hard coming out, eh?
No, he is the devil's... you know, let me tell you, what Museveni found and what is there. You know, this skilled man you talk about.
It's you who discredit him using those words.
Yes.
Even though you oppose him right now.
That
and I'm using your own words to refresh your mind about what in which capacity you regarded him.
You know, for example, he found an economy that had an infrastructure that he destroyed. He's now talking about making the railway. When we came in 1986, there was a railway, actually a railway line and trains going all the way to Kasese. There were trains going all the way to Pakwach in 1986. There is nothing now he's talking about. There was an airline. He destroyed it. Now they are trying to rebuild the Uganda airline, which is, of course, they are stealing and so on and so forth. So he staying in charge of a country does not mean that he's serving the country. And that is the you know, because even when they talk about, he's fond of saying that he has overstayed, his overstay in power is because Ugandans have been deciding on electing him. As if when we went to the bush, there was no election. Of course, there was an election. Or that all these dictators that have destroyed Africa have not been organizing elections. Of course, they have, you know. So the thing is that the struggle we are conducting is a just struggle because there is use, you know, no leader. Museveni did not come to power because Ugandans lifted him to power. No, he came using guns. I was with him.
It's good you have added that.
Yes, I was with him. We came fighting to take over power. We captured power by force. Nobody can deny that. And we said we shall organize a transition.
You actually even got some war booty.
Which transition has never happened. Instead, they have been here looting, you know. When we entered Kampala, Museveni, all he had to his credit as far as wealth was concerned was the uniform, the old uniform he was putting on. He did not have anything or any property in this world. You remember even his own words when he was telling people at a wedding that I would give you a cow, but I don't have any. He had nothing. Now he boasts of being one of the richest people, while the country has become very poor. So this domination, control of resources, and exploitation of resources of the people of Uganda by a few, using guns, is what every country seeks to get rid of. So our struggle is a just struggle. Now, once you establish that a struggle is just, the question of how long it lasts is then only secondary. It must last for as long as the problem remains. Because short of that is then surrendering to become perpetual slaves of those that have captured the state. And I will not be one of those surrendering to become a perpetual slave of warlords. That is not
so I know you have been able to convince people, men and women of high name recognition in this country, men and women of substance. They don't want to be slaves. They want to struggle like you. Why is it that people keep falling off?
Yeah,
including those who are supposed to be the immediate lieutenants in your cause and the struggle to liberate Uganda?
Because of the forces that we face. So let me explain the forces that we face. When a few people capture a state like the Museveni junta did, what do they capture? They capture the wealth of the country. They hoard the wealth under their control. They capture decision making. All decision making in the country is by themselves. And that's why all institutions in the country become captive. Whether they are institutions that control the finances of the country, like the Bank of Uganda. You cannot talk about, the Constitution says the Bank of Uganda is an independent institution. It shall not be under the direction of any person or authority, but you have been seeing, and that's why I think now there is no governor since Museveni died. But when Museveni lived, if Mr. Museveni said, I want 500 billion, he'd say, when are the trucks coming to lift it? Whether it's legal or not.
Let the man rest in peace.
Well, rest after causing a lot of trouble. Because actually, we took the governor of the bank to court for releasing our money, giving our money to people under the directions of Museveni, written directives, illegal directives of Museveni to the governor. And the money went. So
him controlling the resource of the state, does that mean people should not have values? Or they can hold on to those values? If they are going to oppose, just like Dr. Besigye, they can oppose because they have values. Why is it that the Ugandan politicians seem to have a certain price that they are even viable? You know why I'm saying this? Because I have seen people across the political aisle. Even if they have a different political ideology, it doesn't matter. They no longer have a political ideology. They have, you know, grosser ideology, if it could be, if I could use that.
That frustration regarding the elites in our country, if you have any, we share it. Certainly we have the worst kind of elites that any country possibly can have, in terms of lack of those values and how to hold on to them. I was telling you that breaking down people happens even in the most developed countries. When you have a state that has unchecked power, like the power that juntas have, they can cause your survival to be tenuous, you know? They can strangle you. If you have a job, they will sack you from the job. If you have some means of subsistence, they will obliterate your means of subsistence. If you have children, they will block all opportunities for your children, which is what the regime here does. And what I'm talking about, people know, you know, no opportunities for, until you either surrender or indeed fizzle away, wither away and die. Now, so depending on the circumstances of people, some are more resilient, they can maneuver, and it's a tough maneuver. Don't make any mistakes about it. It's very tough to live under these kind of conditions. Very, very tough indeed. I hear some people, you know, either ignorantly or maliciously say, you know, some of us, live comfortable lives, we are rich, and they attribute all kinds of things. Part of it, of course, the regime propaganda. But I can tell you, there is absolutely no way you can be thriving, whether in business, whether in any private kind of work, farming or what, under this junta when you are challenging it. The two are not compatible. They will, you know.
So you're suggesting for those who have crossed the aisle have actually been coerced into crossing the aisle?
Yes, and that's why.
And yet they are living
the threshold.
Have been coerced to go and live a comfortable life.
The threshold varies. You see, some have a very low threshold, even when there is very little pressure on them. They are salivating at being like those who are some kind of beneficiaries who have been co-opted by the junta. And some even seek actively to be co-opted. So it's a whole range of, you know, people's ability to resist that determine when they collapse. And this is why, for me, I have never been very judgmental on those who collapse or surrender, to, you know, to castigate them, to say, you know, because for the moment they are holding on, they are adding a block to the struggle. So if they reach a point and say, for me,
you think they have done their part?
I think I cannot go any further. Let me surrender. I don't, you know, praise them for doing that or anything like that, but I understand and I'm respectful of their decision that that's all they could do. Now they have reached a point where they put their hands up. I you know, salute them and leave them to go. I warn them, if I have the opportunity, that even where you are going, things will not be rosy as you think, because you see, the co-optation process does not seek to empower people who were disempowered while opposing.
You know, I find that very hard to say, to believe that when they go, you just take it easy. When you have sacrificed with them, you have struggled with them, you have invested your time and money and resources. You have been, for example, there's a year when you are arrested more than 50 times in 1 year. And when people cross and they join, if I may use Mao's words, they cross and start dining with the devil. Those are his words. And now you're not frustrated?
I told you I'm frustrated with the elite, generally, that they don't have the kind of resilience, and they don't apply themselves, even those that, you know, have the ability to apply themselves to help, because this is not a struggle, as I pointed out, for just the elite. It's mainly a struggle for the population. So what the elite, because they have been advantaged with having more information, more skills, more contacts, so they have more social capital, which they should put at the disposal of those who afforded them to have that social capital, the population. Rather than doing that, they selfishly, you know, seek to simply put themselves in comfort by being co-opted by those who are torturing the population that supported them. That's my frustration. But what I'm saying that I understand, I also am not oblivious. I told you it's a whole range. It's a whole spectrum. I'm not oblivious of the kind of pressures that are put on people who are challenging the regime. And so when they eventually cannot hold on, I understand. I am respectful. I advise them that it's not wise. Maybe if I reach that stage where I cannot hold on, the best thing may be to run out of the country and you leave, you head from outside, which is a bit safer, where you can have more means of subsistence. You are able to live, you are able to continue advising from out there rather than surrender. So I advise. For
quite some time you have been frustrated or disappointed by the Ugandan elite. You seem to be okay with the people who are at a lower rank. But when you look at what happened in the Arab world, what they call the Arab Spring, it took a gentleman called Muhammad Bouazizi, who was working in the market, to undergo self-immolation, setting himself on fire because he was tired. Well, I'm not asking that people should be setting themselves on fire in Uganda, but there was that, can I even call it holy anger, among the local,
yeah, but how many have set themselves on fire in this country? Many, including one who set himself on fire in the police station at Masaka. You know, that young man, was he Ayub, you know, who burnt himself inside the police station and died there because the police had captured his motorcycle, you know, during the lockdown. And he had nothing else to do. So the little money he had, he bought fuel and burnt himself in the motorcycle. Another one burnt himself here in Kireka. Another one in this Kasubi side, and so on and so forth. The question is not whether people have not demonstrated their desperation. You know, you saw the woman who died in the trench being chased by KCCA people, a vendor who killed the woman in this unachievable channel, running away from KCC. So there have been many. And the population, I can tell you, some people say, you know, Ugandans are cowards. Ugandans are not cowards. Ugandans are not without determination. But that determination requires some leadership to put them, to guide them, to put them together, to put to their disposal certain skills that you acquire in the process of various forms of learning, which is the role of elites.
Welcome back. You're watching On the Spot. My name is Patrick Kamara. My guest tonight is retired Colonel Dr. Kizza Besigye. We just now want to look into the state of Uganda's economy, where we are, because right now Ugandans are hurting. They have to dig deeper in their pockets to provide just basic necessities. And the government is not about to give any subsidies or even cut taxes. So in that regard, what would be your policy position?
Yeah, Patrick, before I come to that, you know, before the break, we were just talking about elections and whether they can be respected or not. Have you ever thought about why an election, all elections in Uganda are like a state of war? The deployment of soldiers, armored vehicles, and all kinds of paraphernalia of war comes out during elections. Why? Because in other countries you don't find that kind of thing. You know, in fact, now the state is so militarized. When we were walking into the studio here, I saw, you know, soldiers with guns outside there. And I inquired, what are these soldiers? The ones in black, I understand that those who are, you know, in black are called counter-terrorism. So I said, is there a terrorist here? They said, no, these are guarding a commissioner. There is a commissioner somewhere there. You know, why should a commissioner be guarded by soldiers? Why should any government official, you know, be guarded by, so everywhere, you know, you find every minister now has a lead vehicle, one behind, one, as if they are not public officials. So, but in the elections, you know, there is an election going on today.
Yes.
In Soroti. Before dawn, many of the leaders of FDC who are legitimately there to supervise, to organize, and to manage the election on behalf of the FDC candidate there, the Honorable Moses Satan, were rounded up, including the FDC party leader, He is still in prison. Many MPs are in prison who were there. You know, they attacked them at home where they were, tear gassed in the home, eventually broke into the home and arrested all these people. They have been arresting people from the polling stations. So many who have been already arrested from polling stations. So what kind of elections can can any country call such an election? You know, it's just a fiasco. You know, you saw what happened in Kayunga here. And these are local elections. You know, a by-election of an MP, a constituency election. Kayunga was a local government election. But if you see what goes on, so what about when it touches the actual power of the president? You know? So what we are having is simply no election. And that, I'm not simply referring to it. It has a relevance to your next question, the economy. Because once people have no say in what goes on in their country, they cannot prioritize how their money works, whether it works for them or not. Once you are in a country of that nature, where people have no control over their taxes, then you are bound to have the situation that we have. Because I have been saying over and over again that the problem of the economy today is not a result, like Mr. Museveni has been laboring very, very hard to deceive Ugandans, that it's a result of COVID and of the war in Russia. That's absolute nonsense. Because COVID and the war in Russia only happened in the last 2 years, 2.5 years. Before that, there was, all these factors were not there. But before that, the anguish in this country was as alive as it is today. We had the greatest majority of Ugandans without jobs. We had started selling slaves to the Arab countries and other countries abroad, where they are now extracting their human organs and all other kinds of atrocities. This did not happen because of COVID. The lack of health care in this country did not happen because of COVID, where the privileged, including the children of Mr. Museveni, seek health care abroad. They have no health facility here is good enough to pay attention to their health. They use our money. I told you, Mr. Museveni, if there is anybody who went to power as a pauper, as somebody who had nothing,
that's
Mr. Museveni.
That's why I'm asking, in this case, what would you propose? Because, okay, let's face it, there are Uganda-centric problems, but also he has a point to talk about COVID and the war in Ukraine.
Find a solution to a problem, you must understand its cause. The fundamental cause of the problem here is the economic injustice of extraction from the people without any return. It's like a one-way traffic. You see, this ridiculous policy that they are now fronting as the solution to the economy, the parish model, parish development model, is now the byword. You know, it's everybody's parish development model. What does it mean? Does it mean that the money coming to the parish got to the government without coming from the parish? All the money in government came from the parishes. So it's not that they are doing some magic to bring money to the parish. All the money, the big part they steal, the big part they use opulently on themselves, the big part they use on some infrastructure that does not impact the ordinary people, but that impacts the businesses of those who control the state. All that came from the parish. So when you have taken away all those big chunks and you bring, you know, the leftovers, the crumbs to distribute to parish people with the pomp and the pageantry. You know, we are bringing money to the parish. You think the parish situation will change? Absolutely not. People are starving in the homes of Uganda. Even under colonial rule, the colonial government ensured that there was food security in the home by establishing home food reserve, a reserve in the home that the home had no direct control over, but was under the direct control of the parish chief. There was a reserve at the sub-county. There was a reserve at the county. And now, nearly 4 decades of Museveni's rule, Ugandans are starving. The other day I saw the headline, 900 die of hunger in Karamoja. And the person that calls himself shamelessly a patriot. 900 people dying of hunger. And that is an understatement. You know, because there is hunger everywhere.
But you know,
do
you realize that the food that is being bought to take to Karamoja is not imported? It's food sourced from within.
So what?
Yeah, it means there is some parts of Uganda producing food. It would be very bad and dangerous for food that is going to help people from Karamoja to be coming from Tanzania. The food is coming from here.
You see, let me tell you, that's what injustice is all about. Because I have told you that under colonial rule, how can you compare yourself? You say, I'm a patriot. Your people are starving. I am a colonial master. Everybody is feeding.
I understand. It's an indictment on government. I understand that people of Karamoja are suffering. But Dr. Besigye should understand that the food to help the people of Karamoja is not coming from Europe. It's coming from Uganda.
Well, I'm not sure, but that's not the main point. The main point is that the reason there is a government at all is to ensure that the people under that government are secured. Now, food security is the most basic of all the security requirements. When I hear General Museveni putting on his, uniform and, holding a gun and saying, nobody can play with our security. Which security is he talking about when people are dying of hunger? Because Uganda has never been attacked ever by foreigners. Even the ones whom he claims to be a Sabarwani of, that he has been fighting, he has been killing his own people. He has never killed the Congolese, he has never killed Tanzanians that they are attacking him, he has never killed the Kenyans, he has only been killing his citizens. Now that, you see, is not the security that anybody should be talking about. What is real security is food security, is medical security, that if I'm sick, I can be secured. If hospitals are now death traps, if people are starving, now, of course, some people, because as you know, part of the reason people are starving is that their land was grabbed by those same cabal, So they grab land, they can produce massively, sell to the state to supply the starving people that they evicted from their land. So what would you call that? This is why I say these are agents of Satan, evil. That the other strength you were talking about are strength applied for evil purposes. That's how, so your question was, what can be done? What must be done is to address the powerlessness of people to determine how their resources are used. Because once they are powerless, as ours are, then those who hold power over their wealth will use it quite likely to their own advantage.
Just a few days ago, one of your colleagues, whose job it was to inspire Ugandans and lead the way and show and shine a light to where Ugandans should go, maybe cross to a better country, has crossed the party line almost. No, but Mao is your friend. He's a man of great character, I suppose, a man of substance, but he's moved on to the other side. I wonder what you make. Yes, he's an individual, but he's a party president and quite a formidable character.
You see, that does not change the dynamics. As I told you,
I think it does, Dr. Besigye.
The dynamics is not about the line.
I think that's a game changer.
The line is not between the leaders of the oppressed and the leaders of the oppressors. The line is between the oppressors, including their leaders and whatever helps them to oppress the country, and the oppressed population. Now, let me tell you, so these people who surrender, as I told you, and
so Mao has surrendered?
Oh, without doubt. I mean, there is absolutely no doubt. And I've told you what the mechanisms that lead to their surrender, you know? You see, especially, I told you that when the state is captured by those who have guns, they capture institutions. State institutions first, they capture the judiciary, they capture the financial institutions, they capture the administrative institutions. They now, all those serve the captors, those who have captured. But having done that, they also capture the non-state institutions. Having captured the state institutions, they surround and capture the non-state ones by denying them resources, by terrorizing them, threatening them with death and so on. That's why they capture institutions like faith-based organizations, the churches, the mosques, they are captured. They capture the political parties, which are non-state institutions. And so some people were recently playing a clip of what I said when we were at the last funeral rites of the dad of our friend Dr. Ulume, who is a member of DP. You know, I was saying, you know, these parties like DP, they are going to be captured. They will be captured, whether we like it or not. They are going to be captured, and that was, of course, before Mao declared that he was captured. But what I was saying was not limited to DP. Even the other parties, UPC was the first one to be captured, maybe the DP, others you can see they are at various levels of capture. Why? Because they are surrounded. They are playing in a game that is determined by their captor. Because politics now has been deliberately commercialized. You cannot contest unless you have hundreds of millions of shillings. So who controls the millions? It is the captor who controls the wealth of the country. So if you want to participate in the politics that he has determined, which uses money, then you will fall by his swords. You will not have the money unless he gives you the money.
I've just been listening to a clip by a man I think who has a lot of respect for you, Professor George Kanyaihamba. He was hosted on an online show called Digitalk. And Kanyaihamba said, the only man standing in Ugandan politics is Besigye. But I want, now that you're saying everybody is moving and anybody can be captured, with all respect, are you also contemplating to move?
No, not at all. You see, and that's why I have been campaigning that we must not fight by the rules or in the ground set for us by our enemies. No. If you fight by the rules and on the ground of your enemy, you'll be mowed down. You are on a killing ground of your enemy. You are advancing to the trenches of your enemy. You'll be killed. So tactically, we must have our own framework within which we struggle. A framework that will not subject us to winning elections by money. a framework that will not subject us to working in democratic institutions, supposedly democratic institutions, which are the political parties, and a military dispensation, because a military dispensation is not a democratic dispensation. So these political parties, DP, FDC, NUP, what, they are trying to be democratic institutions in an undemocratic society. So they are a square peg trying to enter a round hole. It will not happen. So we must organize differently. And that's why we have been saying that we must organize as a social movement, not organizing as DP, UPC, all of those who seek change. From all these, we must create a front that is even difficult to define, that this one is the secretary for mobilization, so let's surround him and buy him. You can, you know, fronts which challenge.
Yeah, but those ideas have eluded you. You have had an opportunity to associate and create that kind of organization that is amorphous, but at least geared towards a certain goal.
No,
every time that opportunity comes, you disagree as opposition leaders.
The disagreement actually stems from trying to agree on the wrong strategy. The first thing we
What has been the wrong strategy?
The first thing we must agree on is the strategy for change. Can we change the regime using its rules, its framework, its narrative, its institutions? Can we? That is the question we need to ourselves to answer. So can we change the regime in the elections that they organize with captured state institutions, with the legal framework that is there, and so on? Can we? And my answer has been categorical since 2011 that we can't. We need a different framework of struggle, a different approach of struggle, causing change not by casting a piece of paper in a box where the piece of paper is provided by the person you seek to overthrow, to the system you seek to overthrow. The box is held by the same people. They are the ones who will announce, and you think that you will come out with a different outcome. It won't happen. That's why in 2016 I declared myself a winner, because I was not waiting for anybody to declare me. I knew that nobody could declare me a winner. So the thing is, what I have been patiently and persistently campaigning for is that the strategy for change must be to fight. Because...
Fight with what?
With our captors. Because they captured us.
Fight them how?
Now, that is the second level. So first of all, we must agree that without a fight, we shall not regain freedom. Because our freedom was taken away by force. So we must fight to free ourselves. Nobody will just grant you freedom. Now, how to fight? There are two types of war to free yourself. One, using violence, like Mr. Museveni and I tried to do in the 80s. You look for guns and you fight those who are holding state power. The reason we have very clearly distanced ourselves from that is because although it can succeed, because you have popular support, it will not lead to power shifting from gunmen to ordinary people. Because the new people who take over using guns will still have to be required to account to those without guns. And there is nothing that will compel them to account to those without guns. That's exactly what happened in 1986. So what we have been very clearly advocating for is what defeated the British. We are not inventing any wheel. The British were here. They were more powerful than Mr. Museveni because they made the guns at least. He has no factory to make any guns. He's using...
Have you seen what is coming from Nakasongola?
I know, of course. That was something.
Maybe you haven't seen what is going on.
Nothing comes from there, you know. So
the vehicles that will be harassing you on the streets are no longer going to be imported, Dr. Besigye. They are made in Nakasongola now.
Well. So I'm telling you that the Mambas and so on that are terrorizing this town are the equipment the South Africans used to terrorize black Africans in the 1960s, 1970s, 1980s. That's what so they are very old vehicles which are refurbished and brought to the new Bua.
Bua now.
To use, you know. So that's the starting point of what we must agree on, where we need to agree. Shall we cause change using the framework, the institutions, the narrative, the logic of our capital? No. That's my argument. So once we agree on that, and that's why people say, but why don't you unite? We must unite around a common objective. If the idea is to fight an election and win an election, then, and that's what political parties are set up for, then you'll have all candidates. And especially with the monetized elections, as I said, everybody wants to get to parliament, because if you get to parliament, they give you 200 million to buy a free vehicle for you. Everybody sees that whoever becomes a member of parliament in just one term builds a house at home, builds a house or buys a house in town, has a big vehicle. So everybody wants to fight to get to the prize. And when you say, let's agree whether Patrick or me should be the candidate, we will not easily agree. Okay. Everybody wants that.
Okay, in the interest of time, people saw you in Soroti together, opposition leaders, and the picture, the image created maybe is a positive one, that maybe if you come together, you could inspire more Ugandans. Results are beginning to come in, I suppose, from Soroti. But what have you learned, and very briefly, from this by-election of Soroti? What has it taught you? Nothing
new, frankly, because the people who want change in this country, as I have said, have actually been united in all elections. The people who want change, even when we ourselves, the ones who want positions, when we are not united, the people, because for the people, they are not looking for positions. They are looking for change of policies that will benefit them, where they have more say, more control, and more benefit. So the people have always been united and looking for which candidate may be in this confused area can give them the best opportunity for that change. Now, in Soroti, people have always voted against the junta, very, very strongly, and for good reasons. When Museveni became a president, the people of Soroti were one of the rich communities of Uganda, with a lot of cows, with a lot of agricultural production, with, you know, they were happy a lot. Today, nobody has a cow. Now they are deceiving them that there is compensation for the cows, and they are paying that a cow will be 300,000, 350,000. Where can you get even a goat for that? So the people of Soroti have always been opposed to this government. And that has even now been demonstrated in this election. I was, of course, extremely joyed that the leaders of the National Unity Party, the Honorable Robert Kyagulanyi and his colleagues in this election agreed to not to support the candidate who was already who was already in parliament, because don't forget that in this by-election, Moses Satan was elected just 1 year ago in an election in which NUP had a candidate, and he won very convincingly, defeating the NRM candidate and the other. So that realization by the NUP that the people have already said something, and this was a statement that the Honorable Kyagulanyi made very eloquently in the campaign. He said the people of Soroti spoke 1 year ago. They said they favored Atan, so we have a duty to support him, and that was
our time is up,
very positive. But what I can
very briefly,
what I said also in that election is that uniting in an election is good, but it's not decisive, because elections, in and of themselves, will not end the regime. We must unite around the strategy, the actions that are potent to end the domination.
Retired Colonel Dr. Kizza Besigye, I want to thank you so much for your time, and that brings us to the end of tonight's edition of On the Spot. Join us again next week, same time, same station. There's no dull moment in Uganda, and for the people of Soroti, we want to know, congratulate you for whatever decision you have taken. I think you have taken that decision because you think it's the best decision. Good night.